I'd like to introduce the chair of our board, Mary Hynes, and she's going to take it from here. Thank you, Mary.
Thanks, Barbara. So before I launch into anything, look around at your table. You shouldn't be sitting with people who are your best friends. So if anybody is, now's the moment to move, okay? Because you're going to stay in this spot for the beginning. So today marks the beginning, the very beginning of a community-wide dialogue that's designed to strengthen our community by increasing our understandings, streamlining our processes, enhancing our connections, and recommitting our efforts to shape a more vibrant future for all of Arlington. We're going to focus today on the P in place. It stands for participation. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the other components of this year-long effort at the end of this presentation. Now, before I go any further, I do want to let you know that my colleague Walter Tejada is here. Thanks very much for joining us, Walter. He can't stay. We are all spread out around the county tonight, but thanks for joining us for the beginning, Walter. We are really fortunate to have more than 25 Arlington organizations partnering with us for this event. So if you belong to one of those partner organizations, would you stand up right now? If you belong to one of those. Leadership Arlington, good. Thank you so much. Now, let's see what other ways we might identify or use to describe ourselves in the room. So please stand if whatever attribute we say applies to you.
All right, are you active in a nonprofit? Way to go.
All right.
Oh,
good.
Boy. That is. Okay. Do you run a business in Arlington County? All right.
Good.
Excellent.
Have you lived in Arlington for less than 3 years? All right. How about more than 20 years? More than 20 years.
Oh, God. Oh, my God. Look at that.
And in between? People between 3 and 20. Okay. Oh, that's very interesting.
All right. Do you work in Arlington? All right. Do you work for the Arlington County Public Schools? And I want to recognize our superintendent is here.
Only one.
All alone. Looks like you need some more people over there. All right, so here's do you work for Arlington County? Come on, troops. There they are. Way to go. And thank you for coming tonight.
Have you ever served on a county advisory commission? County Advisory Commission. Okay. How about have you ever been a civic association president or in the leadership of a civic association?
Yeah. There you go. All right, how many came here tonight to learn more about community and are willing to work together to make Arlington even better? Absolutely.
Great.
Yay! That worked.
So give yourselves a hand. Thanks for coming. And let me start with a story. About 30 years ago, when I was still pretty new to Arlington, I wrote a letter to the man who was then the superintendent of the Arlington Public Schools, expressing some concern about reduced support for a particular program that was important to my family. His reply was actually an invitation to meet with the school system's director of finance, a guy named Joe Guter. Mr. Guter was a retired Marine drill sergeant. Big, burly guy, the buzz cut, the gravelly voice. I was a young mom, not very accustomed to bureaucracy or dealing with officials. So I went to his office, and after a pretty lengthy conversation where I was pushing and he was parrying, he finally says, look, the school board isn't going to provide that service any longer because it doesn't have to. And then he paused, and he looked me straight in the eye, and he says, but Mrs. Hynes, Arlington is the kind of place where a persistent, thoughtful, constructive person can make a difference. And he stood up, and he shook my hand, and the meeting was over. Mr. Guter introduced me to the Arlington way. And I bet everybody in this room has some story like that, about maybe the first time or maybe the 20th time. So Barbara, do you have a story?
Well, you know, I've been around for a long time with the county, so I don't have to go far to trip over the Arlington Way. But last year, what is the Arlington Way? The Arlington Way really is all of us coming together, residents, businesses, government, coming together to really solve problems and make things better. So how many of you have heard of the Lubber Run Amphitheater? On a beautiful summer night, have you been out there and enjoyed that evening? Well, we were facing a few struggles last year. And this is a theater that had been deteriorating. It was not funded. We reached out, the community reached out to us, worked with staff. We had a number of safety issues. We had a number of financial issues. And we worked together to balance these issues together to figure out how to renovate within reason and bring this back to life. That was a perfect example of how the Arlington Way works successfully. And the community helped us figure this out. So if you don't have a chance yet, go this summer and enjoy the Lubber Run Theater, because it'll be open and working. Thank you.
So that's what the Arlington Way is. It's a, people come to it from lots of different ways. They come because they have a problem that they think needs a solution. They're working with their neighbors. Sometimes somebody asks you to lead an organization and you go, well, okay, but how do I do that? Or sometimes there's a proposed change by government or somebody else, or you have a personal epiphany that says, I need to get involved. As part of PLACE, we're trying to collect people's stories. When did you encounter the Arlington Way? Tell us about it. So if you have a story that you'd like to share, when you go home tonight, go to the PLACE website. There's a spot you can type it in, and we'll just start collecting them, because we really want to inspire people about all the different ways that you can be engaged with this community. Fundamentally, as Barbara said, the Arlington Way is one of the ways that our community has, over many years, harnessed its good ideas, creative juices, and energy for the greater good. Its success depends on inclusive, accessible, respectful, constructive, persistent, and purposeful dialogue between government and those who live here and work here. But how do we get it? Where does it come from? Arlington's story is one that's steeped in common purpose. From the founding of Freedmen's Village after the Civil War to the arrival during World War II of military and new government workers and their families, today's Arlington, diverse, transit-oriented, committed to educational excellence, environmentally friendly, grew from the seeds that these folks planted. Our leaders in the 1960s knew that our tiny county could lose its identity if we weren't careful. And so they did something about it. They planned. They engaged the community using the Arlington Way, and they laid out a vision for a vibrant future, one that kept what was most important, those great schools, green parks, wonderful shopping, and an incredible habit of welcoming the newcomer. And they added a modern subway system and bus transit that could move people efficiently within and through our county and not compromise our identity. The heart of the plan called for denser development in a small part of the county. We call them the corridors now, right? But they did that in order to do something really important, to preserve Arlington's residential neighborhoods. Nearly 50 years later, that value remains at the core of our comprehensive plan, which lays out our vision for the future. Achieving that plan has always been an ongoing partnership between residents, businesses, and their governments. And in fact, we've captured this commitment in our vision statement. It's always worth saying the vision statement. Arlington will be a diverse, inclusive, world-class urban community with secure, attractive residential and commercial neighborhoods where people unite to form a caring, learning, participating, sustainable community in which each person is important. So look at the trees in that picture. Those trees cover the neighborhoods that were so important and prominently called out in our plan. We have achieved a balance between suburban and urban that makes Arlington one of the most desirable, livable communities in our country. And I believe that we could not have done that without the Arlington Way. It's an integral part of our community's success. So PLACE updates, refreshes, reinvigorates those practices for this new Arlington that we have now, one that's bigger. We have about 210,000 residents, about 200,000 jobs, and we use technology in ways we couldn't have imagined 5 years ago, let alone 20 years ago, at a time when we are also facing the challenge of a significant generational turnover in our county staff. So we need to retouch and figure out how our conversation will go forward. Our objective here is to strengthen and refine our practices in 21st century terms so that they will continue and endure for the next people and the next people. We want to open the door wide so all Arlingtonians who are interested in helping shape Arlington's future can participate in key ongoing community conversations. We want to provide more seats at the table, and it's important that we share how and why we do things so that we can have creative, respectful, civic conversations about the big stuff. Understanding each other's hopes and desires for our community is an important part of engaging effectively in collective work that matters to all of us. So today, we're really glad that you've joined us as we start this journey. Our goal for today, for this evening, is to start building a community map physically, we'll be using this in a bit, that captures how we're connected by the work that we already do and the relationships that we already have. But we also hope that the map will reveal opportunities for new connections and collaborations, leading to a larger number of Arlingtonians engaged in both government and non-government activities. So, think of it, it's your turn now. Think about it this way. You stand at the center of your personal web. You've got connections, you got people, you got places. The person sitting next to you stands at the center of their personal web too. And sometimes your webs touch, sometimes they overlap, sometimes they're interlaced. We want to understand that better using our map. So we want to understand it from government's point of view.
So just so we're clear on what the role of government is in this whole process too. We want to strengthen participation and refine our processes too. And you might say, well, how are we going to do this? Well, this is a key priority for me this year and every year. We started training last year in civic engagement with our employees, and we're continuing to do that. I have this year instituted in my executive leadership team's evaluations that they too will begin to be held accountable for civic participation. And that means that they're setting a standard for their organization. So I'm very hopeful that we will make some progress in this area.
We also want to understand how those webs connect neighbors, civic associations, and local businesses, as well as the connections between sports teams and PTAs and book groups and professional associations. You kind of name it. There are ways that we all touch and connect. All of this is about thoughtful, persistent, constructive work that leads to a sustainable, amazing community right now, but also sets up our children and our grandchildren. So by coming today, you've begun to put yourself on the map, and it is just the beginning. What we learn from the discussions that you're going to have at your tables will be essential to us in developing the next steps. And we will be back in touch periodically, perhaps by email, perhaps inviting you to another meeting or somebody talking to you on the phone. And by the way, if you know of people who wanted to come or out of town, couldn't sign up because the slots were full or whatever, send them to the PLACE website. We've got it set up so they can give us their information and respond to the same questions that you're going to. And since you guys are here on Thursday night, we still do have some slots on Saturday. So if people were wondering, you know, tell them to come on down. But of course, in the end, we have to do a lot more than encourage participation. Because when you invite people in, you have to mean it. The question has to be meaningful to the people who are invited. And everybody who's invited has to be open to hearing all the messages that are said. And there has to be common ground built at the beginning about what it is we're trying to do and why it's important. So that's what we're doing today. We're starting the participation part. In the next stage, as I said I'd tell you, under the leadership section, we'll be bringing together broad sectors of our community: residents, businesses, government, civic associations, commissions, board members, to talk about our roles and responsibilities in civic processes. And later in the fall, we hope to, using training, train all these same stakeholders who are going to start working on a big project, or maybe two, on how we can do it better together. And that'll be the civic engagement part. So stay tuned. There's more coming. And thanks so much for bringing all your good ideas and creativity with you here today. Before I finish up, there are a few people I really need to thank. First of all, those wonderful partners who helped us invite you and get you to come. The planning group, citizens and staff helped plan this. If you're on the planning group, why don't you just stand up and we can say thank you with our hands, if you were on the planning group. We want to thank Artisphere for hosting, and I also want to thank the Prelude ambassadors. These are some young, talented musicians, grades 5 through 10, who are getting together and providing music, and they offered to come and play for you. So you'll hear them again when you go out, and we're really grateful. Thank you so much for coming.